Are NASCAR teams spending more than they should? Is much of their budget going to waste? Denny Hamlin has a strong response. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Like I often say, I spend my day on social media so you don't have to. Last night there was a very interesting back and forth on X. I'm going to review some of these chunky posts with you guys, and then I'll try to add the proper context and paint the bigger picture. As the industry enters this 2-week break for the Olympics, looming in the background are the ongoing charter negotiations. You know, the negotiations that have been going on now for 2 years nearly. Yeah, NASCAR and the teams still do not align. About a week ago, Denny Hamlin, who is co-owner of 23XI Racing, appeared on the Kenny Wallace show and made the comment that it costs about $18 million to put a Cup Series car on the track for a full season. $18 million, and Hamlin says he's asked NASCAR to just cover that cost for the teams, and NASCAR, according to him, has refused. Enter Landon Cassill, longtime NASCAR driver. I think he was a Hendrick development driver back in the day. On his podcast, The Money Lap, he responded to Denny Hamlin's $18 million a year claim, and I should add some additional context before I read you his quote. Cassill was attempting to understand NASCAR's side of the charter argument. But here's the quote that got everyone riled up last night. Landon Cassill said, "NASCAR is not making the teams hire 100 engineers. NASCAR is not making you rent private jets. NASCAR is not making you spend $250,000 on a pit box." Ooh, Cassill then acknowledges that this is a competitive sport, and spending on many of those different things obviously would give a team a competitive advantage. So he acknowledges that there's a bit of a conundrum here. But still, that quote, that strong quote, certainly got Denny Hamlin's attention. Denny Hamlin last night on X responded with a lengthy post of his own, which I will read now. First, $18 million is just for the car on the track to put on this show each and every week. No driver. Seems as though you think it's excessive. Well, we, the teams, opened our books to NASCAR to show what exactly that money was spent on and that it was not excessive. NASCAR executives agreed. That's pretty interesting right there. He continues, "You mentioned that anything we make beyond the $18 million is profit. That would be incorrect. As someone who started a team from scratch and kept it as lean as I could, there are many other departments at a race team that are 100% necessary to operate. Business, marketing, sponsorship, social media, it goes on and on. That all costs a significant amount of money that is above and beyond the numbers listed above. That money is spent not only as a necessity for our team, but to grow the sport through on and off the track activation." The premise of Landon Cassill's point, I think, is correct, that NASCAR has the most leverage and that it's difficult for the teams to go to NASCAR and ask for a whole lot more money when NASCAR can see that they're spending a lot of money on all these maybe unnecessary details. Like, remember a few years ago, the pit gun controversy? Some teams were spending probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for pit guns that would allow their pit stops to be slightly quicker. So broadly speaking, Landon Cassill's point makes sense, but I think Denny Hamlin's point is even stronger. If you're going to compete in a sport that Rick Hendrick, Roger Penske, and Joe Gibbs participate in, you better be willing to spend just to stay remotely competitive. Sure, you could run a team on simply an $18 million budget, but it won't be a competitive team. You'll run 25th to 30th. The way the sport is now, if you are to truly contend weekly with the big dogs, you've got to shell out the big bucks. So I think Landon Cassill kind of overlooked that, I felt, when he made his point. But again, I think he was trying to view this purely from NASCAR corporate's lens. So I don't want to inadvertently assign an opinion to Landon Cassill that he doesn't actually have, if that makes any sense. But my takeaway from all of this is that if the teams are going to get the larger slice of the revenue pie that they're hoping for, they may need to agree to some sort of a spending cap. And I'm not sure many teams are going to go along with that. Some of the bigger teams would likely need to slim down their operation even further. That potentially means more lost jobs. Nobody really wants to see that. But unfortunately, the truth of the matter is the entire NASCAR industry has contracted over the past decade and a half. Even recently, NASCAR reportedly laid off some of their corporate staff, reshuffled some of their leadership positions as well. So I mean, I guess it's across the board, but I know Denny Hamlin and many team owners have been complaining now for years that the teams are the one part of the NASCAR ecosystem that are most struggling to turn a profit. That's what Denny Hamlin has said, at least. Very interesting back and forth there, and actually it didn't stop there. Landon Cassill made another very interesting comment on social media, and it's a good point that I don't hear brought up very often. The question is, are technical alliances good for the teams involved? Imagine if the Dallas Cowboys paid the Kansas City Chiefs for access to their playbook. That's basically how technical alliances in NASCAR work. 2311 Racing pays Joe Gibbs Racing for access to all of their data. All this while on the track, 2311 Racing is competing against Joe Gibbs Racing. Shoot, Reddick for 2311 and Hamlin for JGR are both in the running for regular season champion. They're at odds. It's weird, right? A conflict of interest, sort of? Landon Cassill posted this on X last night, and I thought it was really interesting. He said, quote, "Technical alliance isn't just the cost of doing business, it's platform risk. At any moment, the technical host can double, triple prices, or pull the rug out from their technical partners. Ask Barney Visser. This would cripple 2311's performance overnight and cost Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan millions." Cassill points out Barney Visser, Furniture Row Racing. Back when Furniture Row closed down at the time, the chatter was that Joe Gibbs Racing was jacking up the price of their technical alliance. Combine that with the fact that Furniture Row had lost a major sponsor and the dollars and cents just didn't add up anymore. But anyway, Landon Cassill continues, quote, "Any industry leader sees this kind of platform risk as a major flaw in the business model. No amount of NASCAR subsidy will change this host-partner arrangement. I don't have the solution to this, and it may not be on anyone else's priority list, but in my mind, the tens of millions exchanged among teams for support is wasted money. The money could be spent on revenue-generating assets for corporate partners who are footing the bill." Overall, I think Landon makes a really good point about the sustainability of these technical alliances and partnerships, though I'm not sure I fully agree with the wasted money comment towards the end there. If I may try to make a real world analogy, and I'm just going to talk through this so it may or may not even make sense. Technical alliances in NASCAR are a lot like owning versus renting a home. I've never owned a home. I've only ever rented different apartments. Every month I pay my rent. That money effectively goes down the drain. It goes to a landlord who ultimately can choose at the end of my lease if they want to jack up my rates. Even though I don't own any part of this apartment, there's no way for me to ever potentially recoup any of that lost money. I'm not sure I'd call it wasted because renting an apartment has allowed me to live in some very nice apartments, some nice neighborhoods close to cities and things I like, places I want to go. Because I'm renting, I can afford something that makes my life, I feel, way more convenient. Compare that to if a few years ago when I was out of college, if I'd tried to buy a home. I'm not even sure what I could have afforded. Maybe something really small in a neighborhood I don't really want to live in, far from the things I want to do. If I had gone that route, my day-to-day life would have probably been less comfortable, far less convenient. But hey, at least my money every month would be going towards an asset that I would then own. I think this analogy works. To tie this back to racing, 2311 is renting while a team like Legacy Motor Club owns. 2311 rents data from Joe Gibbs Racing, and that's allowed them to get very competitive very quickly. Without that technical alliance, there's no way 2311 Racing would have qualified for the playoffs the last, if you include this year, 3 years. Without that technical alliance, 2311 would probably look a lot more like Legacy Motor Club does now. See, Legacy Motor Club owns their data. They don't align themselves with Joe Gibbs Racing. They've got their Toyota partnership. They're looking to build out their infrastructure to accommodate the Toyota data. As a result, it's been a much slower, tedious process for Legacy Motor Club. But long term, to Landon Cassill's point, maybe what Legacy is doing is the right course. Right now, they live in a small, kind of dilapidated old house on the wrong side of town, but they own it. They can invest in it, build on it, expand, renovate. And maybe one day they'll be able to own a very nice house. But that's a long-term play. There's risk associated with that. There's risk associated with what 2311 is doing as well, but they've fast-tracked their way to championship contention. To Landon Cassill's point, it works when it works, but there's the chance of it all coming crashing down. To his point, Ask Barney Visser and Furniture Row Racing. From champions in 2017 to out of the sport less than 2 years later. It's a very precarious position to be in. I hope that analogy made some sense. Very interesting back and forth on social media last night. That's all I've got. Let me know in the comments below what you make of both Landon Cassill and Denny Hamlin's claims. I think both make some very good points. It'll be interesting over the next few weeks, months to see where the negotiations between the teams and NASCAR ultimately end up. That is going to do it for this episode, y'all. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more NASCAR discussion just about every single day, even during the off weeks, and a big thank you to my Patreon supporters for your continued support of the show. Have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday, folks. Thank you so much for watching.